Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and a finance trainer from Uplatz. Today, in this class, we will discuss section 139C, section 139D, and section 140 and section 148 of Income Tax Act. We are discussing the provisions which are relating to the filing of return of income and the self-assessment. The provisions which are relating to the filing of return of income and the self-assessment of tax. So now we will start our discussion on these sections. Section number 1 is section 139C and section 139D. Power of CBDT to dispense with furnishing document etc with the return and furnishing the return in electronic form. Means the CBDT has the power to specify some documents which are required to be furnished by the assessee when the assessee will furnish his return of income electronically. When there is any assessee, he has furnishing his return, then the CBDT specifies some documents which are required to be furnished by the assessee with such a return, with these returns. Section 139C provides that Section 139C of the Income Tax Act contains the provision that the CBDT has the power. The CBDT makes the rules, and these rules are applicable for the person and the class of the persons who may not require to furnish document. The CBDT may make the rules providing for a class or the classes of the person who may not be required to furnish document, statement, receipt, certificate, report of audit, and any other documents which are otherwise required to be furnished along with the return. Under any other provision of this act means the CBDT has the power to notify those documents which are not required to be furnished by the assessee. If these documents are furnished by the assessee in any other provision of this act means as per this point the the CBDT specify the document which are required to be furnished with the return or which are not required to be furnished with the return of income. If the documents are furnished with or in other sections, in other provision of this act, then these documents are not required to be furnished with the return of income, with the return of income. So power of CBDT to dispense with the furnishing of return of income means the CBDT can issue or make the rules for the class or the classes of the person who may not require to furnish these document, statement, and returns, receipt, reports, and the audit or any other document which are already submitted under any other provision of this act, because if it is already submitted then no need to submit it again with the return of income. However, on demand, the said documents, statement, receipt, certificate, receipt of audit or any other document may have to be produced before the assessing officer. Before the assessing officer, it can be produced again on the demand. On the demand, these said document, returns, certificate, reports, and the audit reports and any other document has to be prepared before the assessing officer. Before the assessing officer. Section 139D empower the CBDT to make rules providing for. Section 139D it provide or it empower the CBDT that the CBDT can make the rules. The CBDT can make the rules providing for means the CBDT can make the rules in the respect of following point. Number one, the class and the classes of person who shall be required to furnish the return of income in electronic form. Section 139D empowers the CBDT to make the rules providing for number one, a class or the class of the person, a class or class of the person who shall be required to furnish the return of income electronically. Means the CBDT make the rules in the respect of following point. Number one, it will specify the person or the class of the persons who are required to furnish the return of income electronically, who are required to furnish the return of income electronically. And the CVDT also specify the rules or make the rules in the respect of form and the manner in which the return is required to be furnished. The manner in which the return is required to be furnished. The return is required to be furnished, and it may make the provision, or it may make the rules. It may make the rules in the respect of documents, statement, certificate, audit report, which are required to be furnished with the return. The CBDT can also make the provision in the respect of those document, statement, certificate, returns which are required to be submitted, which are required to be furnished by the which is required to be furnished by the assessee when he will submit his return electronical form, but have to be produced before the AO on demand. But it is required to be furnished, it is required to be submitted before the AO on the basis of demand. And the CVDT can make the rules in the respect of in the respect for computer resource or electronic records to which the return of income in the electronic form may be transmitted. The computer record resource or electronic record to which the return of income is electronic form may be transmitted. And so these all are those rules which are notified by the CBDT. Means the CBDT has the power to make the rules in the respect of these following points. It may specify the person or the class of person who are required to furnish income tax return electronically. Means they will furnish the return electronically only. Number 2, the CVDT also specify the form and the manner in which the return is required to be furnished. In which the return is required to be furnished. The CVDT also make the provision or make the rules in the respect of document, statement, certificates, and audit report which are required to be furnished, in the electronic form. Means the document which are required to be furnished when at the time of filing of the income tax return electronically. And the CVDT can also make the rules in the respect of computer resource or electronic records to which the return of income in the electronic form is may be transmitted. Now we will discuss section 140. Section 140 of the Income Tax Act. Section 140 of the Income Tax Act. Person authorized to verify return of income. The person who are authorized to verify the return of income. Section 140 of the Income Tax Act. So this section specifies the person who are authorized to verify the return of income under section 139. Means section 140 of the Income Tax Act explain the persons who are authorized to verify the return of income under section 139. So number one, individual. Circumstances. Number one, in circumstances not covered under point 2, 3, and 4 below, then the authorized person will be individual himself. Means in the case of individual, when the individual is not covered in circumstances 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then the authorized person will be individual himself. Means he will authorized person. He will be considered as authorized person. Number 2 point, where he is absent from India. When the assessee or the individual he is absent from India, then the assessee, the individual himself, or any other person who is authorized by him who is authorized by him in this behalf, holding a valid power of attorney from the individual. Means if there is any individual and he is out of India, there is an individual and he is out of India, out of India or absent from India, absent from India. So the authorized person will be the individual himself, the individual himself. And number two, any of the person who is authorized by such individual, any of the person who is authorized by such individual in his behalf, and such person holding a valid power of attorney about such selection, about such authorization. Number three, where he is mentally incapable from attending office affairs. Means when there is an individual who is not mentally capable, then a such person will be, then the person who will authorize, number one, his guardians, the guardians will be considered as authorized person on the behalf of such incapable person or another person who is competent to act under this act. Means the person who is competent, who is eligible, then he will be considered as authorized person, then he will be considered as authorized person. Number four, where or for any other reason it is not possible, for any other reason it is not possible for the individual to verify the return, in due to the any reason it is not possible to verify the income tax return, then any person who is authorized by him, then the any person who is authorized by the person, by such individual, by such individual on his own behalf, and who holding the power of attorney from such individual in the respect of his authorization. Means the person who is, means the person who is authorized by such individual, by such individual means any person who is authorized by such person in the respect of, in the respect of such authorization, means such person will authorize it on the behalf of such individual. Means such person can authorize it, or such person can uh, authorize by the power of attorney on the behalf of another person, then it will be considered as authorized person. So, in the case of individual, if the individual he is not covered in point of 2, 3, and 4, then authorized person will be individual himself. And in point 2, where he is absent in India, from India, then the person who is authorized by such individual will be eligible, or he will be considered as authorized person. And number 3 point was where he is mentally incapable, then the guardians or any person who is competent to act, competent to, or competent on the behalf of such assessee. And where for any other reason the individual, when there is any, due to the any other reason the individual is not capable or the individual is not eligible to verify his return, then the any person who is authorized by such individual, then it will be considered as authorized person, it will be considered as authorized person. In the case of HUF, in the case of Hindu undivided family, point number one, in the circumstances other than 2 and 3, the authorized person will be known as karta, the authorized person will be known as karta, other than point 2 and point 3. In point 2, where the karta is absent from India, where the karta who is absent from India means he is not in India, then any other person, any other adult member of HUF, any other adult member of HUF, any other adult member of the HUF will be considered the authorized person. It will be considered the authorized person. Where the karta is mentally incapable for attending the affairs. If the karta is mentally incapable, means he is not capable to attending the affairs in this situation, the authorized person will be the any adult member of such HUF. Any adult member of such HUF will be considered the authorized person if the karta of such HUF is not capable. If it is not stable if it is not capped. In the case of company, in the case of company, in the case of company, if if it is not covered under point 3, 4, 5, and 6, in this situation, the managing director of the company is to be known an authorized person. Means if the company is not covered in point 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, then the authorized person will be the managing director of such a company, the managing director of such company. Point number two, where for any unavoidable reason, the reason is unavoidable, which cannot be avoided. For any of the unavoidable reasons, such managing director is not able to verify the return. If due to the any unavoidable reason, the managing director of the company he is not able to verify the return. He is not able to verify the return. So in this situation, the authorized person. So in this situation, the authorized person means any director of the company. Any director of the company or any other person as may be prescribed for this purpose, means the director of the any director of the company or any other person who is authorized or who is prescribed for this purpose will be considered as authorized person. Number three, where the company is not resident of India, means where the company is non-resident of India. So in this situation, who will be considered the in this situation who will be considered the authorized person of such organization? So the person who holds the valid power of attorney. The person who holds the valid power of attorney from such company to do so will be considered the authorized person. Means the person who hold the valid power of attorney, and such power of attorney is received from the company. It is received from the company. Then he will be eligible. He will be eligible. He will be eligible, or he will be considered as authorized person. He will be considered as authorized person. Number four, where the company is being bind up, means the company is bind up, the company is closed, then the authorized person will be liquidator. Then the authorized person will be liquidator. And number two, where the person has to be appointed as a receiver of any class of company, where any person has been appointed as such person has been appointed as the receiver of any class of company, then the liquidator will be considered as authorized person. Then the liquidator will be considered as authorized person. Number five, where the management of the company has been taken over by the central government or by the state government under any law, where the management of the company is taken over by the central government or by the state government or by the central government or by the state government under any law, then the principal officer of the company will be considered the authorized person. Then the principal officer of the company will be considered the authorized person, या authorized person of such organization. Where number six, where an application for the corporate solvency reservation process, where an application for the corporate solvency resolution process has been admitted by the adjudication authority under the insolvency and bankruptcy code. When there is an application is made for the corporate insolvency process, and it is made by the or it is admitted by the adjudication authority under the insolvency and bankruptcy code, then insolvency professional then the insolvency professional who is appointed by such adjudication authority, then the insolvency professional who are appointed by such adjudication authority will be considered as authorized person. It will be considered as authorized person. Number four, in the case of firm, who will be considered the authorized person. So number one, in circumstances under section which is not covered under point 2, means in the case of those point which is in the case of those circumstances which is not covered point second, then the managing partner of the firm will be considered as authorized person, but when the due to any unavoidable reason the managing director is not able to verify the return, then the partner of the firm will be eligible as authorized person, but such partner should not be minor. But such partner should not be a minor. Where in the partnership firm there is no managing partner, then any of the partner of the firm. But such partner should not be minor. But such partner should not be minor. In the case of firm, managing partner, or if the managing partner is not able, then any of the partner, but the partner should not be minor. In the case of LLP, in the case of LLP, in the case of LLP, the circumstances other than point number two, then designated partner. The designated partner is that if sorry, due to any unavoidable reason, the designated partner is not able, due to any unavoidable reason, the designated partner is not able to verify the return, is not able to verify the return, is not able to verify the return, then a partner of the LLP or the any other person, as the case may be prescribed for this purpose, then the partner of the person, then the partner of such LLP, if there due to any unavoidable reason the designated partner is not able to verify the return. The designated partner is not able to verify the return, then any of the partner of such LLP will be eligible to verify the return. Local authority, in the case of local authority, the principal officer. In the case of local authority, the principal officer will be considered the authorized person, In the case of political party, the chief executive officer of such party, the chief executive officer of such party will be considered the authorized person, the chief executive officer of such party. He will be considered the authorized person. And next, any other association. In the case of any other association, the member of such association. In the case of AOP, any member of such AOP or the principal officer of such AOP, any member of such AOP or the principal officer of such AOP will be considered the authorized person. In the case of any other case, that person or any other person who is competent to act on his behalf, is that if there is any person which is not covered in point 1 to point 8, in this situation any person means such person itself, or any other person who is competent to act in this behalf will be eligible to worked as a competent to worked as a as a authorized person, to work as a authorized person to work as a authorized person. Now we will discuss section 140A. Self-assessment. Self-assessment is section 140A. Number 1, payment of tax, interest and fees before furnishing of return of income. Payment of tax, the payment of interest and fees before the furnishing of return of income, is that if there is any assessee who is required to furnish his return of income and there is the tax liability, then he will pay it before the filing of his income tax return. Means before the furnishing of income tax return, the assessee will make the payment of tax, the payment of any interest or fees if any. But such payment should be made before the filing of return of income, before furnishing the return of income. When there is any assessee, he is furnishing the return under section 139 and there is any payment. After the payment of such tax, interest, penalty, fees, the assessee will be eligible to furnish the return of income. Means where any tax is payable on the basis of any return and which is required to be furnished under section 139, then such a return is required to be furnished after taking into account number 1, means after the payment. amount of tax already paid under any section, under any provision of the Income Tax Act, the TDS and TDS and TCS, TDS and TCS, any relief of tax which is claimed under Section 89, any tax credit which is claimed to set off in the accordance with the provision of Section 115 JD, and any tax or interest which is payable as per the provision of Section 191 subsection 2. Means the return is required to be furnished after considering all these points. Number one, if there is any amount of tax which is required to be paid, so then it will be paid. It should be paid. And if it is already paid, then it will be considered. The provision of, the TDS and TCS will also be considered. The relief of tax claim under Section 89 will also be considered, and the tax credited which is claimed to set off in the accordance with the provision of Section 115 JB, it will also be considered, and any tax or any interest payable as per the provision of Section 191 subsection 2 will be considered. It will all be considered. The assessee shall be liable to make the payment of tax together with the interest or the fees, if under the provision of Income Tax Act, if there is any delay in furnishing the return. Is that if the assessee fails to furnish his return on or before the due date, then such assessee will be liable for the penalty with the for the penalty and the interest if he will not furnish, liable for the fees and the interest if such assessee will not file his return of income, file the return of income on or before the due date of furnishing the return, or if he make any defaults, if there is any delay or there is any default in the payment of tax liability, in the payment of advance tax before the furnishing of return, then such assessee will be liable for the fees and interest. He will be liable for the fees and interest. The return shall be accompanied by the proof of payment of tax, return and fees. Means when the assessee will file his return, then such assessee will furnish, then the assessee will furnish, then the assessee will furnish the proof of such payment, the proof of such payment of such a tax, interest and fees. Tax, interest and such fees. So the assessee shall be liable, or if there is any assessee does not file the return within the specific time period, or within the due dates, then the assessee is required to make the payment of fees as well as the amount of interest, order of adjustment of the amount which is paid to the assessee, adjustment of the amount which is paid by the assessee, is that when there is any payment which is made by the assessee under Section 140A subsection 1, where the amount paid by the assessee under Section 140A subsection 1 falls short to the aggregate of tax, interest or fees as aforesaid, then the amount which is paid shall first to be adjusted towards the fees payable, and thereafter with the amount of interest and the balance, if any, then it shall be adjusted with the tax liability. Is it that if there is any amount which is paid by the assessee and it is fall short, then such amount first we will adjust with the amount of fees and then interest and then after tax, just like the assessee, Mr. Ram, he is required, total amount of payment is required 15,000, but he has made the payment of only 10,000. There is the amount of fees, 5,000 is the amount of fees. Interest for the example 2,000, and the tax is 8,000 rupees. So in this situation, such a 10,000 first we will adjust with fees, then interest, and the balance 3,000 we will adjust with tax. Means if the payment which is made by the assessee is short, then first it will be adjusted with the amount of fees, then after with the amount of interest, and if the balance, if any, then it will be adjusted to the balance of tax. Balance of tax. interest under section 234A. Interest under section 234A. 234A. Is it that? The interest under section 234A, it will be calculated on the total amount of tax which is required to be payable, means net amount of tax which is payable, means total tax. First we will calculate the tax on a total income, then on such a total tax we will reduce the amount of advance tax which is already paid, then after that, we will reduce TDS and TCS. We will reduce the amount of TDS and TCS. And then after, we will provide the relief under section 89. If there is any relief under section 89, then we will also reduce it. And number 4, we will also deduct any tax credit which is claimed to set off in the accordance with the provision of section 115 JB. 115 JB means for the above purpose, interest shall be interest under section 234A. It will be payable on the net amount of tax. Net amount of tax means total tax liability minus advance tax minus TDS and TCS minus any relief under section 89 and any tax credit. On such amount we will calculate the amount of interest under section 234A. 234A means 1% of 1% of per month. We will calculate on the net amount, when there is any delay in filing of return of income. Then the interest will be 1% under section 234A. Interest under section 234B. Interest under section 234B. So under the interest under section 234B is required to be payable by the assessee when the assessee make the payment, means the assessee fails to make the payment of advance tax or the advance tax is paid by the assessee short, means the interest payable under section 234B shall be computed on the assessed tax or on the amount by which the advance tax paid fall shortfall of the assessed tax. So for this purpose, what is the meaning of assessed tax? What is the meaning of assessed tax? Assessed tax means total amount of tax. Assessed tax means total amount of income tax and reduced by TDS and TCS. Relief under section 89 and any tax credit which is claimed to the set off in the accordance with the provision of section 115 JB, means assessed tax is equal to total tax liability minus TDS and TCS minus any relief which is given under section 89 and any tax credit which is claimed to be set up in the accordance with the provision of section 115 JD. 115 JD means the assessed tax is a total amount of tax, means net amount of tax before reducing the advance tax. So the interest under section 234B will be calculated on the assessed tax or it will be calculated on the short amount of advance tax which is paid by the assessee. Consequences of failure to pay tax, interest or fees. What will be the consequences if the assessee fails to make the payment of tax, interest and any fees? If there is any assessee who is required to make the payment of tax, interest or fees and such assessee fails to make the payment of such amount, then the provision which are relating to such a point, means the provision of this act shall be applied to such organization accordingly. Means if there is any assessee fails to pay whole or any part of tax, whole or any part of interest or fees, he shall be deemed assessee in default. He shall be considered or he shall be deemed as assessee in default. And all the provision which are relating to such provision, then all the provision of income tax which is related to such provision will be applicable to such assessee. It will be applicable to such assessee. So now we will revise such chapter in the summary form. in the summary form. Number 1 point, mandatorily quoting of PAT under section 139A. Mandatorily quoting of PAT. In the case of all return, and correspondent with any income tax authority, means if you are furnishing any return or if you are providing any detail, any data, any information to the income tax authority, then you will mandatorily quote the PAN number. In the case of all challan means if you are making the payment of by the way of challan, then on such challan, it is mandatorily to quote the PAN number. It is mandatorily to quote the PAN number in all documents pertaining to such transaction which is entered by him as prescribed by CBDT. Means if there is any assessee who is entered into the any of the transaction which are specified by the CBDT, then the assessee will quote the PAN number. Quoting of Aadhaar number, section 139AA. If means the Aadhaar number is required to be quoted after 1st April 2017 in the application, means when there is any assessee make an application for the allotment of PAN number, then he will furnish. Then the assessee will furnish the Aadhaar number, quote the Aadhaar number. If he does not Aadhaar number, then the assessee will quote enrollment number. If the assessee does not have Aadhaar number, means he has applied for the Aadhaar and at that time he does not have Aadhaar number, then for the purpose of this he will mention the enrollment number. He will mention the Aadhaar enrollment number. Aadhaar number is to be intimated to the prescribed authority. The Aadhaar number is required to be intimated. It is required to be intimated. It is required to be intimated to prescribed authority. Aadhaar number is required to be intimated to the prescribed authority. Next section, section 140A. Section 140A. Self-assessment under section 140A. What will be the amount of self-assessment under section 140A? Under section 140A. Tax payable. Self-assessment tax payable is equal to tax minus total income tax. Self-assessment tax is equal to total income tax minus advance tax which is paid minus TDS and TCS minus income tax relief which is given under section 89, and the tax credit which is claimed, to be set off in the accordance with section 115 GT, and tax interest which is payable under section 191 subsection 2. So this is the amount of self-assessment tax. And return to be complied by the proof means when you are filing the return of income tax, then you will provide the proof of such payment of the payment of tax, interest 234A, B and C, and fees which is payable under section 234A, and order of adjustment of the amount, fees, interest and tax. Order of adjustment of the amount of tax, fees and interest. So on the basis of proper discussion, part 1 means in the respect of this topic, we have discussed this topic in 6 classes, and in all these classes we have understand the provision which are related to the filing of income tax return and the provisions which are related to the self-assessment of tax. And we have also discussed about the payment of interest, means the interest, penalty, fees, etc. So this concept is one of the important concept of the provision of Income Tax Act. Kindly consider all the videos of this chapter so that you can properly understand each and every topic of such a concept. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye-bye and have a nice day.